Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Catch, Hook, and Shoot. Today is Sunday, January the 6th, 2019. Hope everybody had a great New Year. My name's Tom. I am your host. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Hope everybody's listening and watching on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Twitch, and hope everybody's following on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. First and foremost, want to announce officially I will be hosting a Royal Rumble viewing party on January the 27th on Sunday, 6 p.m. It's going to be done at Nighthawk's Coffee Bar and Tavern here in Chicago. The address is 4744 North Kimball Avenue. If you live in Chicago, it's right at the intersection of Kimball and Lawrence Avenue, right across the street from the Brown Line station. For those of you not in Chicago, the Brown Line is a train line. It should be a great time. We're going to be showing the Rumble on the big screens in the bar, and me and my buddy Rich, who's been on the show a couple of times before, we are going to be doing live commentary and live streaming it on Twitch. Now, we are not going to be streaming the pay-per-view on Twitch. That would get me shut down real quick. So what's going to be streaming on Twitch is me and my buddy Rich doing our commentary on the show, whatever else is going on in the bar. So, if you're in Chicago, come on out, check it out. And if not, make sure you check out the live stream on Twitch. That's at twitch.tv/catchhookshoot. And, it should be a great time. And like I said, that's going to be at 6 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, January the 27th for the Royal Rumble. So starting off this week on kind of a sad note, I'm sure everybody knows by now, earlier this week we lost another legend in the business, Mean Gene Okerlund, probably the greatest interviewer of all time. Well, no, probably about it, the greatest interviewer of all time, and just a staple of wrestling, especially in the 80s and 90s. And Hall of Famer. What else? What can you say about Mean Gene that hasn't already been said? So that one hit home really hard. Really did bring some tears to my eyes, and because I grew up listening to Mean Gene, and some of his interviews especially with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, are just some classic moments in pro wrestling. So rest in peace, Mean Gene. And so getting into other news this week, on Monday Night Raw, we saw Triple H confront Seth Rollins in the ring, kind of the same way that Vince McMahon confronted AJ Styles the previous week on SmackDown. So I'm guessing from this they're trying to make the top guys on each show to be AJ and Seth Rollins, is what it's looking like to me, since you've got the two basically heads of the company confronting these guys and telling them they need to be more aggressive and bring out their inner beast, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Coming up this week on Raw, we've got a tag team title match between the Revival and Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. So that should be a great match with those four guys. Also, Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, both scheduled to be on the show. And kind of a controversial topic been going around this week. Hulk Hogan is scheduled to make an appearance on Raw to honor Mean Gene, which I think is appropriate. I mean, no other wrestler is as synonymous with Mean Gene than Hulk Hogan. Like I said, I think pretty much every wrestling fan and every wrestler at some point or another has used the line, well, let me tell you something, Mean Gene, or something along those lines. So I think having Hogan there to honor Mean Gene is definitely appropriate. A lot of people not so happy about this for obvious reasons. There's still a lot of bad feelings about all the controversy surrounding Hulk Hogan and the comments that he made that were leaked. And my personal feelings about it, I said this on Twitter, I think it's okay to have him back to honor Mean Gene. I mean, one of his best friends, and things like that. So if that's the only capacity that they're bringing him back in, I'm okay with that. I don't think he should be, I don't think he will be back on a permanent basis in any kind of capacity. I don't see him, on Raw every week or anything like that. I don't think that's anything that we need to worry about. If that was the case, then I could see an issue with it. But if it's just kind of a one-off just to honor Mean Gene, And I said this on Twitter as well. When it comes down to it, WWE is a business, and having Hogan there is going to bring ratings, and that's something that they really need, especially this week because they are going up against the college football championship game. So they're going to do what they need to do. Also, I've seen that potentially Ric Flair may be there. He's another one. Had some great interviews with Mean Gene, and so if the two of them in the ring together talking about Gene, I think would be a pretty cool moment. Should be a good segment. I would imagine that would kick off the show, and going from there, just continuing on like a normal Raw broadcast. As far as SmackDown last week, I know a lot of people have been talking about the segment with Becky Lynch and John Cena. It was definitely a pretty cool moment. Cena kind of putting his stamp of approval on Becky Lynch and her kind of punking him out a little bit. Very, very entertaining spot. AJ Styles did win a match to become #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship, so he will be facing Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble. So that should be a great match. I mean, never seen a bad match between these two, and I'm sure this will be no exception. This week there's going to be a triple threat match for the #1 contender for the Women's Championship between Carmella, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte. The winner of that will be facing Asuka at the Royal Rumble. My pick for this one, I'm going with Becky Lynch. I think they're going to end up putting the title back on her sooner rather than later. I don't know if she'll necessarily win it at the Rumble, but I'm picking Becky Lynch to win this one. If Becky does not win for whatever reason, then look for her to win the Women's Royal Rumble. So moving on from there, of course, this past weekend was New Japan Pro Wrestling's biggest event of the year, Wrestle Kingdom. It's their quote-unquote WrestleMania, so to speak, but yeah, it was a great card from top to bottom. A lot of good matches. I saw a few people said, it seemed like it was rushed, like the matches didn't take quite as long as maybe they should have, or didn't get the kind of time that they should have. Now, I haven't seen the whole thing. I've only seen the matches that have been broadcast on Access TV so far, but the ones that I saw, I loved it. I thought they were thoroughly entertaining. So I'm just gonna run down the card here with the results. Starting off the pay-per-view was the Most Violent Players taking a victory in a gauntlet match for the #1 contender for the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. Next, we had a match between Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay. Ospreay defeated Kota to win the Never Openweight Championship. Then we had a three-way match for the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. Los Ingobernables de Japan were victorious in that one, so they are the new Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. Basically, every championship that was on the line at Wrestle Kingdom changed hands. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Tomohiro Ishii for the British Heavyweight Championship. Los Ingobernables de Japan again won a three-way tag team match to win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. Juice Robinson defeated Cody to win back the IWGP US Championship. Taiji Ishimori defeated Kushida for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Jay White defeated Kazuchika Okada in a basically a grudge match. This one I'm dying to see this one whenever they show it on Access. I'm hoping it'll be this week. Naito defeated Chris Jericho to win back the Intercontinental title. This was a great match. A couple of really good spots in this one that were cringeworthy to say the least. And Hiroshi Tanahashi is the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Defeated Kenny Omega in another just fantastic match. And then so an interesting note from the next night at their at New Japan's New Year's Dash show, there were no elite members at that show, including Kenny Omega. So we're talking Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Cody, the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, Marty Scurll. None of them were at the New Year's Dash show. So that I think is very telling. Then the NWA also had a what they called a pop-up show this week. It was called New Year's Clash. It was a co-promotion with Tried and True Wrestling, which is an independent company that's owned by Crimson. If you guys remember him from TNA. And on this one, we had Max Stardom defeating Jeremiah Plunkett in the first match. We had the War Kings, which is Crimson and Jax Dane, with Road Warrior Animal in their corner, defeated Caleb Conley and Jay Bradley, and this was a qualifying match for the Crockett Cup coming up in April. Crazy Steve defeated Sam Shaw for the Tried and True Championship. Allie defeated Jazz in a match for the NWA Women's Championship. However, she won by disqualification, so there's no title change there. David Arquette with his tag team partner Tim Storm defeated Josephus and the Spiritual Advisor in a hair versus hair match. So, yeah, basically Josephus had to have his head shaved after the match. Some pretty good pictures of that online. Willie Mack defended the NWA National Championship and was successful against Matt Cross. And Nick Aldis was victorious over James Storm in a singles match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Coming up tonight on pay-per-view is Impact's on Homecoming pay-per-view, and this again looks like a great card that they've got coming up here. Starting off with a women's tag team match: Allie and Sue Young versus Kiera Hogan and Jordan Grace. Yeah, those are probably the top four. Outside of Tessa Blanchard and Taya Valkyrie, those are the top four women in Impact right now. The Impact women's division is, getting back to where it was at one point in time, where it's becoming, very competitive, and that's one of the things that, you want to tune into Impact to see is the women's matches. We've got Sami Callihan versus Willie Mack, Eddie Edwards versus Moose in a Falls Count Anywhere match, Abyss versus Eli Drake in a Monsters Ball match. Those are always fun. Latin American Exchange defending the Impact Tag Team titles against the Lucha Brothers, Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. That should be a great match with those four guys. And we've got an Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. Of course, Brian Cage vacated the X Division title, cashing in what they call Option C, basically giving up the title in exchange for a World Championship match. So the Ultimate X match for the vacant X Division title is going to be Jake Crist versus Ethan Page versus Rich Swann versus Trey Miguel. I'm looking for Rich Swann to take the victory in this one. He's really kind of gotten himself back on track since moving over to Impact after the having some problems and being released from WWE. And then singles match for the Knockouts Championship. Got Tessa Blanchard defending against Taya Valkyrie with Gail Kim as a special referee. Given the matches that these two have had and the way that Tessa's held on to the title, in classic heel fashion, I would be very surprised if Taya does not come out as champion in this one. But then again, they could always throw a swerve in there. You could see Gail Kim maybe helping Tessa. You could see a heel turn from Gail Kim. It wouldn't be unheard of. She's played the heel part before, and she's very good at it. So, I could definitely see a scenario where Tessa retains the title, but I could also see Taya coming out, and I think either one would be, if done properly, would be a great ending to the match. And then the main event tonight is for the Impact World Championship. Johnny Impact defending against Brian Cage. Should be a fantastic match. Now, Killer Cross has kind of been in the mix with these two, trying to, offering help to Johnny Impact, saying that, he can't beat Cage without Killer Cross's help and things like that. So I'm interested to see if he interjects himself into the match and in what capacity, and if because Johnny Impact and Brian Cage are both both baby faces right now. So if Killer Cross kind of gets involved, helping one over the other, you could see a heel turn on either side. However that comes out, so it should be a pretty good pay-per-view tonight from Impact, and I'll be going through the results of that next week on the show. So getting into some other wrestling news this week. Actually, this is from last week. Bandito has signed with Ring of Honor. Those of you that are not familiar with Bandito, he is a star from Mexico. He wrestled at the All In show back in September. He is All In was the first time I actually saw him myself, and I was blown away. So and he has signed a contract with Ring of Honor, so expect to see him on ROH TV real soon. Also with Ring of Honor and the NWA, they will be co-promoting the Crockett Cup coming up on April 27th. So that and for those of you that might not remember or that weren't around, back in the day when the Crockett Cup was a thing. The Crockett Cup is basically a tag team tournament. It was done yearly through Jim Crockett Promotions, which was the top NWA promotion back through the 80s. And yeah, it's always been, very, very entertaining, fun to follow along with. The NWA was always really big on tag team wrestling, and I have seen some rumblings that this is going to kind of tie into the NWA Tag Team Championships, which are vacant right now. So, and with the NWA kind of slowly reintroducing their titles, of course, with the national title a couple months ago with Willie Mack winning that one in a single night tournament. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the tag team championships, if that's just going to kind of be the awarded to the winner of the Crockett Cup tournament as well. So we'll have to see where that goes. And a couple other things I want to touch on here before I get into the big news of the week, and I'm sure everybody knows what that is. But before I get into that, a couple of things I want to touch on that have been going on social media this week. One is Toni Storm deleting all of her social media accounts after some private photos were leaked, and it's really kind of sad that this has become kind of the norm. I talked a lot about it on social media, had some really good back and forth debate with some people about it. A lot of people think basically are, well, don't take those kind of pictures and you won't have to worry about them getting leaked. But honestly, that is horrible mentality. It really is, that we have to live in fear of our private business being blasted out all over the internet for the whole world to see. I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's the world that we live in. People are not nice. People are not respectful of other people. People have no common courtesy towards their fellow human beings. And saying people, I'm being very general. I know there are good people out there. There's honestly more good people than there are bad. But, the bad ones are the ones that you hear about all the time. So, bottom line is it's never okay to blame the victim of a crime. I don't care what risk they took or anything like that. People saying that it's somehow Toni Storm's fault that this happened, and it's not, bottom line. And I made the comparison online. People had a problem with it, but I'm sorry, it's a valid comparison. It's tantamount to saying, if a woman is sexually assaulted, oh, well, she shouldn't have been wearing such a short skirt or such a sexy outfit. Excuse me? Nobody has any right to put any blame on the victim of a crime, and that's exactly what this is. Every single time it happens, it is a crime. And I think people tend to forget that. It's, because it has become so commonplace, and because it's pretty much impossible to, to find who does it and bring them to any kind of justice or anything like that. And, it's just, I don't know, it's crazy and it's upsetting and it's infuriating is honestly what it is to me. But it's just, it's cyberbullying is what it is. And, anybody who says, well, it's her own fault or she should have known better, or no, there is no woulda, shoulda, coulda. There's none of that. We're talking about the victim of a crime, a person who's been violated on probably one of the most personal levels you can be. And and speaking from experience, I mean, I've been the victim of a crime before, not, anything like this, but, I've been mugged before. I've been, I've had things stolen from me and things like that. And, the first thing a crime victim thinks, the first thing that goes through their mind is blaming themselves. Like, oh God, what could I have done to prevent this? Or I could have done this better, or I could have taken these steps or whatever. So do you honestly think they need to hear it from anybody else, especially uncaring strangers on the internet? Just because you can voice your opinion doesn't always mean you should. There is common courtesy, there is compassion, there is empathy. And I'm sorry, if you're sitting here blaming the victim, you are no better than the person who committed the crime. People, and again, I said this on social media, people commit crimes because they have no empathy, they have no compassion, they have no care for other human beings. Their only care is for themselves. And if you're, sitting here placing any amount of the blame on the person who's been victimized, then you're in the same boat, because you have no empathy, you have no compassion, and nothing is going to change my mind. That's my opinion on the matter, and you know it is what it is. But Toni Storm, she's got NXT UK Women's Championship coming up at NXT UK Takeover Blackpool next weekend, as a matter of fact. So, best of luck to her. I hope she's able to, mentally be in a better place so that she's able to compete. And, I'll definitely be watching that one, because she is one of the top female stars in the world right now. And, yeah, just, have some compassion, guys. I mean, yes, could this have been prevented? Yes. But that's completely irrelevant. It happened. And, she deserves as much support as she can get. She deserves to know that this is not the end of the world. It's not her fault. It's the fault of the people that did it. And, if you don't have anything better to say about it, then, oh, well, she should have done this and this differently, then please just don't say anything at all. It's the old adage, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, especially in a case like this. I mean, like I said, victims of crimes have a tendency to blame themselves right off the bat anyway, and they don't need to hear it from anybody else. They don't need strangers reiterating what they're already going through. And, I'm sure she's beaten herself up enough without a bunch of keyboard warriors beating her up even more. It's completely unnecessary. It's completely uncalled for. So, and that's my take on the situation. I mean, there's risk involved in everything. There's risk in, every time I get behind the wheel of my car, I'm taking a risk. If I get into a car accident, does that mean it's my fault? Well, I took the risk. I got behind the wheel, so I must be to blame for it. If I had just stayed home and not gone out, it wouldn't have happened. That's how stupid it sounds when people try to blame the victims of a crime. Oh, well, she took the risk. She knew what could happen. Yeah, well, that, like I said, it's like saying, well, don't go out of your house and you won't get hit by a bus. Don't take the risk. There's risk in everything. So just, just be a little nicer to each other, guys. That's all I'm saying. And have some compassion, have some empathy and some sympathy. And Toni Storm, take the time and come back better and stronger than ever, and kick some ass in NXT UK, because that's honestly the only thing anybody's going to care about at the end of the day. So moving on from that, another big internet issue going on this week has been a viral video of Priscilla Kelly in a match that she had. From what I read, the match was at least a week old before anybody started really jumping all over this incident. I'm not gonna break down the details of it, because it might be a little disturbing for some people, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And it was it is what it is. I mean, it's pro wrestling, guys. It's not it was basically what I would call and this is a term that I use, a shock spot. It was done for shock value. It was done to gross people out. It was done to make people say, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And it accomplished what it set out to do. Now, and she went on Twitter and basically said, "Hey guys, it's fake. Stop taking it so seriously." And then people jumped all over that, saying, "Oh, wrestlers shouldn't say the business is fake." I don't think she's referring to the whole business when she says it's fake. I think, this is my opinion, she's referring to the spot. It was fake. It was a prop. It wasn't real. It appeared that she was doing something thoroughly disgusting, but it wasn't as bad as it appeared, is the best way I can put it. And I get, it's going to gross some people out. Hey, I thought it was thoroughly disgusting, but I'm not going to condemn her for it. I've seen, throughout the history of wrestling, and I'm not just talking about the Attitude Era, for everybody who like, oh, shut up about the Attitude Era, it's over with. I'm not just talking about the Attitude Era. I'm talking about throughout the entire history of wrestling, there have been spots done strictly for shock value. I'm talking about DX raining down feces on Vince McMahon and the Spirit Squad. That was not the Attitude Era. I'm talking about, Kevin Owens being locked in a porta potty and shoved off the stage. That was definitely not the Attitude Era. That was his last year. I'm talking about Joey Ryan with his lollipop every match, shoving it down his tights and shoving it in a guy's mouth. That's a regular occurrence in today's wrestling scene. So, it is what it is, guys. It's done for shock value. It's done to get a reaction. And it got the desired reaction, and it got Priscilla Kelly's name out there all over the place. So, kudos to her. It was, to me, it it may not have been, what's the word I'm looking for here? May not have been the most technical of wrestling moves, I guess, put it that way. But it got her some attention. People say, "Oh, it's the wrong kind of attention," and this and that, and you're never gonna please everybody, and especially with a spot like this that generates this kind of controversy, people are going to jump all over it. It's going to happen. But again, and I said this today on social media, there is a fine line between stating your opinion and becoming a cyberbully. If you want to state your opinion, oh, it was gross, it was disgusting. Hey, yeah, it was, but I don't have a problem with it. It was her match. It was in a bar. It was a 21 and over crowd. There were no children in the audience. It wasn't being broadcast on national TV. It was for the crowd there. And I don't know if it was on a streaming service or anything like that, but it was a 21 and older show. And it was obviously something that was worked out between Priscilla and her opponent. And again, it is what it is. It's pro wrestling. It's showmanship, guys. It's done for entertainment. It's done for shock value. It's done for comedic value. It got a great reaction from the live crowd, and people have been on both sides of this for the last couple of days on social media. My take on it is, if you didn't like it, fine. You want to state your opinion. You think it was gross. You think it was out of line. You think she crossed some kind of line or whatever. I disagree, but it's your opinion. You're entitled to it, just like I'm entitled to mine. She's entitled to hers. She obviously didn't have a problem with it because she's the one that did the spot. I don't know whose idea it was, if it was hers, her opponent's, the promoter, the booker, whatever. But it got the desired reaction, and that's really, when you're talking about a wrestling match, that's the most important thing. It got over with the live crowd, and I don't think anybody has any right to demean or degrade her as a person for performing this spot. Like I said, if you don't like it, that's fine. You need to express your disgust with it, that's fine. Like, oh, just say, oh, that was horrible, that was disgusting, I can't believe they did that. Fine, don't watch it. But when you start questioning her as a person or running her down as a person, that's when you've crossed the line. You've crossed the line from stating your opinion to becoming a keyboard warrior and a cyberbully. And that's not okay. I will never begrudge anybody an opinion. There's so many people out there, especially wrestling fans, probably the most opinionated group of people on the planet. Everybody's got something to say about, whether it's WWE, New Japan, or Ring of Honor, Impact. Everybody's got something to say. And social media gives everybody a voice to express those opinions. And, I use it to express mine, just like everybody else does. But I refuse to bully anybody, because number one, I don't know these people personally to where I have any kind of right to demean them like that. And I refuse to sit by and tolerate it when somebody else does it. If I see it, I'm going to call it out, and I'm going to tell them, if you don't like it, that's fine, but you don't have the right to do what you're doing. And like one name I'm going to drop right now is Jim Cornette. He loves, and he's built a following of over 100,000 people by, running people down. And, and I love Jim Cornette. I'm a Jim Cornette fan. I think he's one of the best managers in the history of the business, don't get me wrong. And he's got his opinions, and he's very old school when it comes to wrestling, and, that's fine. And he wants to say, oh, that spot's horrible, they're taking too many risks, I don't like it, it's crap, it's garbage. That's his opinion. He's entitled to it. When he starts talking about the people doing those spots, saying that they're a piece of shit and they deserve to be boiled in oil, that's where I have a problem. You don't have that right. You don't have the right to call somebody names, to basically say they deserve to die because they did a spot in a wrestling match that you don't like. You know, that's horrible. That is unprofessional. You think the spot was unprofessional? That kind of conduct is unprofessional. You call yourself a wrestling personality and, you know, a professional and been in the business for 30 plus years or however long it's been, and you're going to basically say, you know, you think people should be killed because you don't like a spot they did in a match. There's no logic in that whatsoever, and it's just pure stupidity, quite honestly. So, you know, Jim Cornette, that I try my best to maintain respect for the people I grew up watching, but Jim Cornette, you've definitely lost some respect for me. I know you don't care. You don't even know who I am. I doubt you'll hear this or, you know, ever see anything I post on Twitter, so that's fine. But yeah, definitely lost some respect. Another one is you know, Jim Ross said the spot was embarrassing. That's the only word that he used, and you know, he didn't degrade Priscilla Kelly or anything like that. Didn't make any comments about her personally, so that's fine. I'm not gonna jump on that. But you know, there's certain things I think, you know, people need to really stop and think before they comment on something. Think about their own personal history. Think about stuff that they did. I mean, okay, Jim Ross said it's embarrassing. This is coming from a man who literally had his face shoved into Vince McMahon's ass by The Undertaker on live television with children in the audience and watching at home. So, and yes, that was the Attitude Era. You know, it was an edgier product and everything, but you know, come on. There's got to be a point where you just have to let something go and not you know, not make a comment on it just because, you know, for some reason you think you're above it at this point in your life, but you've done, you know, knowing full well you've done comparable things in the past. And, you know, with this particular spot, we're talking about a 21-year-old, you know, who's been in the business a very few years, who's, you know, like I said, it was done for shock and awe, and it was done for the audience that was there that particular night, which was a 21 and over crowd. And, you know, it is what it is. Leave it alone, guys. Let people wrestle their kind of matches. I mean, most important thing here, nobody was hurt. Nobody was injured. It didn't put anybody at unnecessary risk. And, you know, and that's I always thought was the most important thing about a wrestling match was that nobody gets hurt and everybody goes home happy. Well, nobody got hurt and that crowd went home happy. So, you know, good on Priscilla Kelly and good on her opponent. I'm sorry, I don't know what her opponent's name was, but, you know, good on them. So they, you know, they got the reaction they wanted. They got over with that particular crowd. And as far as I'm concerned, they have nothing to be ashamed of. So, and that's gonna pretty much wrap that part up. But yeah, like I said, guys, just you know, nobody's saying you have to like everybody or be friends with everybody or you know, the world's not all hearts and flowers and things like that. If you have a negative opinion on something, please feel free to express it, especially if it's, you know, about, you know, my show or something like that. I welcome it, but, you know, remember, there is a line there. And when you cross that line from stating an opinion to bullying somebody, it's, yeah, that's where you've crossed the line from being a decent human being into being a not so nice human being. I'll leave it at that. But let's get into the biggest news of this week. On New Year's Eve, of course, it was announced that All Elite Wrestling is in business with a show coming up in apparently in Las Vegas called Double or Nothing, a sequel to All In. And yeah, so what do we know about All Elite Wrestling so far? Well, what we do know is that the president of All Elite Wrestling is Tony Khan. Now, he is a member of the Khan family who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. One account that I read online said that his initial investment to start up the company was $100 million, which is a hell of a startup investment. So they should be off on a pretty good foot there. Cody Rhodes is serving as executive vice president of the company, so that definitely, you know, this is the mind that put together All In, or one of the minds that put together All In. So definitely a great choice there. Brandy Rhodes is the chief brand officer. I found that interesting. I'm sure she's qualified for it. I just think it's I don't know if funny is the right word, but that's the same title that Stephanie McMahon has with the WWE. So you know, it's kind of mirroring Stephanie and Triple H. Triple H is an executive vice president. Stephanie's the chief brand officer. So it's pretty cool. According to now, these are the official announcements. Now, rumored announcements is that the Young Bucks are going to be the bookers for All Elite Wrestling, and Hangman Page and SoCal Uncensored are basically going to be in agent roles, from what I understand, like kind of backstage producers. Kind of the same role as like an Arn Anderson or Billy Kidman or Jamie Noble have in WWE. SoCal Uncensored obviously is Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. The members of the Elite that we really haven't heard anything about, we probably won't for a little while, is Marty Scurll and Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega, like I just talked about a little while ago, lost the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom, so that kind of fulfills his commitments with New Japan. By all accounts, his contract with New Japan is over at the end of the month. So we'll have to see if he, if anything is said about him in the coming weeks with All Elite Wrestling. Now, Marty Scurll is still under contract to Ring of Honor, from what I've read, until at least March. So he probably won't be having any kind of official dealings with AEW anytime soon, but I would assume once his ROH contract is over with, he will be right there with Cody and the Bucks and everybody else. Now, on kind of a side note, as far as Kenny Omega goes, rumors have been running rampant the last few days that WWE has been making a serious play to sign Kenny Omega. The rumored contract that they offered him was like 4 or 5 years for $20+ million, which is that is unheard of for the WWE to offer a contract like that to somebody just coming in, just debuting with the company. So how much truth is in that, I don't know. I don't doubt that they made him a huge offer, but we'd have to see. I'm sure he'd want some kind of creative control and his merchandising and things like that. I mean, the $20+ million for the 4 or 5 years, I don't know if that includes any kind of merchandising or licensing rights or anything like that, or if that's just his downside guarantee as a wrestler, because that would be insane, like I said. But again, we'll have to see if Kenny Omega pops up anywhere with WWE or AEW in the coming weeks. I'm sure by next month, I'm sure we'll know. But some other names that are being associated with AEW right now, one is Barry Bloom. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he's kind of like the top sports agent in the world. Some of his clients are Jim Ross, Chris Jericho, Bill Goldberg. Now, JR is under contract with WWE until March, but his name has kind of been attached to AEW since the rumors started going around about it. So, wouldn't be a huge surprise if after the end of March we see Jim Ross kind of hanging around with Cody Rhodes a little more and things like that. He did talk about on his podcast that he has met Tony Khan not in an official capacity, not like business meetings or anything like that. He's just, said he's met him, talk wrestling with him, things like that. Chris Jericho, another name. Now, Jericho, after Wrestle Kingdom, has stated he wants to challenge for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, which Tanahashi just won from Kenny Omega. So we'll have to see, is Jericho going to stick around with New Japan for a little longer, or what's going to happen with that? Now, nobody's saying he couldn't do both, because Jericho's all over the place. I mean, he goes kind of where he wants. He's really got pretty much carte blanche when it comes to wrestling to go anywhere and do anything. And so wouldn't surprise me to see him, involved with AEW and still wrestling with New Japan. Now, apparently, this was another rumor, the AEW people were having meetings this weekend with officials from Ring of Honor and New Japan to try to work out working relationships. Now, if this could be done, it would be huge, because that would give AEW access to some of the biggest stars outside of WWE right now. So I'm really hoping that this is true, and I'm hoping those meetings went well, because that right there would open a lot of doors for them. But So yeah, there is going to be a rally coming up this week on January the 8th for the Double or Nothing show. Now the rumor is that the show is going to be on May 25th in Las Vegas. Like I said, the rally is this week, January the 8th in Jacksonville, Florida, which coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, SmackDown is in Jacksonville the same day. So and supposedly WWE is going to be monitoring this rally very closely. What exactly that means, I don't know. If they're just going to be watching to make sure that the Bucks don't invade their show again or their arena, or if they're going to be watching to see, what kind of announcements are made or who's there and things like that. And another rumor going around is that AEW is negotiating for a TV deal. Obviously, I mean, if you're a new wrestling company, that's the first thing you want is a television deal. And supposedly they've already copyrighted the name Tuesday Night Dynamite, which kind of puts them in a good position because once SmackDown moves to Fox in October, they're going to be moving to Friday nights, which leaves that regular Tuesday night time slot that SmackDown's been in for the last couple years wide open. So AEW could just kind of swoop right in there. And supposedly they've been having talks with Time Warner to get that show put on either TBS or TNT, which is kind of crazy to me because when WCW shut down, the main reason WCW shut down and was bought out by WWE is because the Turner people, or Time Warner at that time, they had bought out Turner. Time Warner did not want wrestling on their television channels. They thought it was too lowbrow, so to speak. So it's interesting that they'd be negotiating with AEW now and potentially putting wrestling back on TBS or TNT. But I'm not going to complain if that's the case. That would give them a huge platform to distribute their show, and it's easily accessible channels. So have to keep a real close eye on this one. Supposedly there's been some recruiting going on with some WWE stars that aren't happy with their positions. Now, I haven't seen specific names, but I've got a few names that I think would do well if they were able to, if AEW was able to sign these guys. And keep in mind, I don't know what the contractual status of any of these guys are. These are just some names I pulled off the top of my head. Like, yeah, I think these guys would do good. They're not doing a whole lot in WWE. And, like Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, great as a tag team, great individually, not really doing much with WWE as far as television goes. I mean, I know they're on house shows and things like that, but, as far as Raw or SmackDown, you never see these guys. Another one is Ty Dillinger, top guy in NXT, and he gets called up to the main roster, and he's just kind of been floundering there. Bobby Roode, another one. I mean, yeah, he's a tag team champion right now, but my opinion, I think he's been, kind of mismanaged on the main roster. Again, huge in NXT, but they brought him up to the main roster, tried to make him a babyface, and for me, it just doesn't work. I mean, I know, a lot of people love Bobby Roode, and hell, I love Bobby Roode, but I love him as a heel, just because it just seems to come so naturally to him. That's why one of the things that made him so great in NXT and in TNA. Another one, Shinsuke Nakamura. He again, fantastic in NXT and gets to the main roster and, had some flashes of greatness on the main roster in his feud with AJ Styles and things like that. But since he won the U.S. title after that feud with AJ kind of died down, they moved on from that after they had their series of matches. It just hasn't been. I mean, he's had, the last couple weeks with him and Rusev have been pretty good, but for the most part, he's not at the same level that he was in NXT or even back in Japan. So I think, AEW could be a viable option for him. Another tag team, Tyler Breeze and Fandango. I think they would do real well. I mean, they're, have got a great fan base. They're both fantastic in the ring. Again, Tyler Breeze, another one that was a top guy in NXT. And then, when it came to the main roster, just didn't seem to translate over. I think one name a lot of people have been thinking about for AEW's Finn Balor. Obviously, if you went over there, he would, I'm sure he'd go back to his real name, Fergal Devitt, or Prince Devitt, as he was known in New Japan. Now, there has been rumors flying around out there that he is going to get a major push this year from WWE. So if that's the case, I don't think he'll leave anytime soon. So That one's kind of a big what if. But that, all of these are big what ifs. Another one, and I think maybe a more realistic name that you could potentially see in AEW is Dolph Ziggler. He's been, for the last couple of years, by all accounts, he's been working on handshake deals and just contract extensions. Has not signed a new long-term deal with WWE, so he's one that could potentially, I could see making his way over to AEW, especially if he's offered to be put in a top spot. I could easily see Dolph Ziggler as the number one heel. Kind of he really does kind of remind me of Chris Jericho. I think he kind of flies under the radar. I don't, I think people kind of take him for granted. Because he's going to put on a great match. He's great on the mic. He's a great heel. Not the best babyface when he has worked as a babyface, but as a heel, he's right up there. So I could definitely see him being like the top heel in a different company. And then finally, another fantastic tag team that has not been used very well or even very much in WWE is Gallows and Anderson. Came in around the same time as AJ Styles and came into a lot of hype and everything, and just kind of died out. And I don't really know why. I don't really think it was anything that they did, but so we'll have to wait and see. I mean, these are just some of the guys who I think would do well in AEW, who would prosper. But then you're going to see a lot of independent names too. I would think that people that might not get a shot in WWE, or some people from Impact or some people from Ring of Honor, especially if they do get some working deals in place. I think it's just it's going to be a very interesting few months coming up here with All Elite Wrestling, and I've seen a lot of comparisons being drawn with Turner and WCW, but I really don't think it's going to be the same thing. I mean, Ted Turner was a TV guy. Yes, he owned the Atlanta Braves and things like that, and but first and foremost, Ted Turner was a TV guy, and WCW was turned into a TV company. I mean, the NWA was always a wrestling company, but when it became WCW, it was turned into a TV product. And everything was about the ratings and things like that, and they wanted to run Vince McMahon out of business, and that was going into it with that kind of mindset to bury your competition and run them out of business is the wrong way to start a business. But I think with the Khan family, they're and especially Tony Khan, he's a sports guy. I mean, yes, they own an NFL team, and the NFL is all about competition, but it's not about running your competition out of business. That's the main difference. When you own an NFL team, your competition are other NFL teams. You want to build a better team so that you can beat them on the field. You don't want to run the Jacksonville Jaguars don't want to run the Miami Dolphins or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out of business. Competition in the NFL is what brings in an audience. So it's just a different mindset. So I don't think they're going to run into the same kind of problems that Turner and WCW did, especially with Cody Rhodes being one of the top executives in the company, from what it sounds like the number 2 executive in the company. So I think they're going into this with the right kind of thinking, and I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun, and it's going to be, I think, pretty cool to have yet another alternative to WWE. And from the sounds of it, it's gonna, I mean, they did this because the fans were clamoring for it. They did this on the back of All In, which the fans just ate up. So I'm thinking, they're gonna build this brand with the fans in mind. They're gonna bring in wrestlers that people are gonna get behind, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing where AEW is going to go in the next few months. I'm looking forward to hearing about when we can start seeing AEW shows being promoted. Now I would assume that the Double or Nothing is going to be their first show. So now, from like I said, the rumors, it's going to be held in Vegas. So I will most likely not be able to attend this one in person. I'll have to watch it on pay-per-view, which I'm sure it will be on most likely on the Fight app or something along those lines. So that's how I'll be watching it. I'm sure now in the promo picture for Double or Nothing, they did have the Starcast logo, so I'm sure Conrad Thompson is involved in this somehow or another. I think it's a safe bet that he'll be in Jacksonville this coming Tuesday on the 8th for this rally that's going on. So yeah, I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that. Yeah, I mean, if there is any possible way I can get to Vegas come Memorial Day weekend, I will be there because I'm sure there'll be another Starcast convention attached to this, and it's not something that I want to miss. So if there is some way I can get myself there, I will be there, and I will be posting stuff on social media like crazy as much as I can. But yeah, that's really about it. A lot of big news going on this week. Like I said, hope everybody had a great holiday, great New Year, and yeah, looking forward to the coming year. It looks like professional wrestling is really going to get very interesting this year. So hope everybody just enjoy the ride. Don't overthink it. Just be a fan. Enjoy the time. It's the greatest time in history to be a wrestling fan. So just sit back, watch, and enjoy. And so that's pretty much all I've got for this week. I'm going to sign off once again. Thank you everybody for checking out the show. Remember to watch and listen on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and Twitch. Make sure you follow on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, you have questions, comments, something you'd like to see me talk about or anything like that, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. Don't forget about my Royal Rumble viewing party, which will be live streaming on Twitch, 6 p.m. Central Time, Sunday, January 27th. If you're in Chicago, come on out to the viewing party. It's at Nighthawk Coffee Bar and Tavern, which is at 4744 North Kimball Avenue in Chicago, right at the intersection of Kimball and Lawrence Avenue, right across the street from the Brown Line station. And yeah, if you're not in Chicago, join me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/catchhookshoot. I will be live streaming the viewing party with commentary on the pay-per-view from myself and my buddy Rich, who's been on the show before. I want to reiterate, I will not be streaming the pay-per-view on Twitch. I'm not trying to get my channel shut down for copyright issues. So yeah, if you tune into Twitch expecting to see the Royal Rumble for free, it's not going to happen. You're gonna be seeing me and my buddy giving our commentary on it. Maybe other people in the bar want to jump on camera. That's great too. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So again, that's Sunday, January 27th, 6 p.m. Nighthawk Coffee Bar and Tavern at 4744 North Kimball Avenue in Chicago. And if you can't make it there in person, join us on twitch.tv/catchhookshoot. And yeah, hope everybody has a great week. And I will be back next week with another episode. And until then, I will see you guys later.